Meet the Candidate. I'm Chris Clark, President and CEO of the Queen Creek Chamber of Commerce, and today we're joined by Pinal County Supervisor candidate Chuck Gray. Welcome, Chuck.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born and raised in the East Valley. I lived here all my life, and so the last 8 or 9 years or so, I've lived out here in the Pinal County, Queen Creek area in an unincorporated section. And my background is that I was a block layer. My dad was a masonry contractor, and so I grew up laying block and brick and stone and all of that in the hot Arizona sun. So my father, the good man that he was, taught me how to work. And so then I became a police officer and served at City of Mesa for 10 years, a detective and a police officer, and worked on many projects within that, including an anti-gang curriculum. Back when the gangs were a big deal, we made sure that we had a program to keep the kids off the streets and to teach the kids in all the public schools in Mesa how to use life skills to be able to stay out of the gangs, to keep their self-esteem up and their family histories and those kinds of things, to tie them back to the family rather than to let them reach out to someone less savory, like the gang members. And so I worked there for 10 years and started an internet business. That internet business was successful, and I sold seat covers and automotive products online all over the world, and found that running an internet business is it kind of runs itself 24/7. And so I was able to run for the Arizona House of Representatives and served there for 3 years. And then I moved on to the Arizona State Senate, served there for 5 years, and the last 2 years I was the Senate Majority Leader. I decided to get out, and so I quit doing that and focused on my business. And then Congressman Salmon was elected to the U.S. Congress, and so he asked me to be his district director. And so I served there for 4 years until he decided he didn't want to run again. And that's when Congressman Biggs took his place, and each congressman gets to pick their own staff. And so when Congressman Salmon retired, I did too.
Wow. Quite a career in our state legislature and our politics, so thank you for your service.
My pleasure.
So thinking about the Pinal County area now, you've been out there and it's been a little time. What made you decide you wanted to run for office again?
Well, actually, I was ready to retire. I wasn't looking for another gig or another opportunity to serve. I was going to retire and kind of get my bearings, if you will, on what next to do with life. And then there were some individuals that came to me and said, you know, Chuck, we recognize your service in the legislature and your service at the federal level with Congressman Salmon, so we'd like you to run for county supervisor. And I was hesitant because that wasn't on my goal list. I'd already been in politics, been there, done that. But I started looking deeper into Pinal County. It's the third largest county now in Arizona, and so I recognized that this county, this Pinal County, has grown so quickly that it may have grown quicker than its resources. And I'm talking about the personnel resources and the experience level of the people there. And I recognized that I have a skill set and an experience that could greatly enhance what can happen in Pinal County if I would but volunteer my services. And so after looking at where Pinal County had been and where it was going, I realized that I think I did have something to contribute and to use my experience to better the community and try to keep up with that fast growth that we've experienced in Pinal County.
So that particular district and area is a little bit unique for most county supervisor positions in that it's not incorporated. There's not a municipality that you're dealing with, say, like we do in Maricopa County.
Correct.
And so how does that affect the day-to-day of the job, and what kinds of things would the county supervisor be working on there?
Well, I think that the county supervisor in this particular district, in this Santan area, has to approach this job differently than maybe some of the other county supervisors do. Because we don't have a city except for just edges of Queen Creek and edges of Florence, Santan Valley is unincorporated. So there's no mayor, there's no city council, there's no team of people, there's no layer of government there that can pick up the slack, if you will. And so in my estimation, the County Board of Supervisors not only has to wear the hat of a County Board of Supervisor, but he also needs to wear the hat of the mayor and the hat of the various councilmen and pick up that slack for these people. And so I think if you do that, then the people are going to be much happier. And I think that the question about whether or not we want to incorporate or not may subside, given the county stepping up and giving a higher level of service based upon a supervisor who can wear those various hats. And with my experience at the federal level, my experience at the city level, my experience at the state level, I think I can bring that experience together to be able to successfully wear those hats.
So what do you see as, say, the top two issues that need to be addressed for that area?
Well, it's important to understand that some of these tie in together very carefully. I think the biggest issue that would help tremendously would be economic development. And you as a chamber understand the importance of economic development. But I think Santan, because it doesn't have the mayor and city council to form those plans and cheerlead those plans and stand up and make those things kind of happen, it falls upon the county supervisor to make sure that those things happen. And so when you have the economic development that occurs actually in Santan, the unincorporated areas, that really can be a driver for all the other issues that Santan's experiencing. For example, we've had a problem for many years with the roads and the traffic. We have 100,000 people or so that live in Santan Valley, and it's hard to get around on the roads, which only the county is providing. And that's fine, except for if you had the economic development that came in, where you had jobs that were closer to Santan. 80% of our workforce in Santan Valley has to leave Santan every morning to go find their job, to go to their work, their place of work. And then at night, they all come back. If we had economic development where we had high-paying local jobs right here in Santan Valley, then you'd have less people on the roads, your drive times would be shorter, the people in Santan Valley would spend less on gas, automobile repairs, less wear and tear on their vehicles and their tires and their brakes. All of those things would happen, and you would see the quality of life in Santan Valley just spring and blossom if we didn't have to travel so far for our jobs.
And how do you foresee being able to bring in some of those types of jobs?
I think that the way that you do that is by proper planning. You have to go back and say to businesses, what is it that you need to get here? What is it that's an obstacle for you to come here? Why are you hesitant? Why would you like to go someplace else? Let's see if we can fix those issues. But it takes talking, it takes dialogue, and it takes working with the Pinal County Planning Department to make those bridges, build those bridges in the first place, but secondly, solve those issues so that there's an off-ramp into Santan Valley as we build those bridges.
And so you think having those jobs, obviously reducing the need for travel to some degree, but are there any ways to build more roads in Santan Valley or to improve the roads that are there? Hunt Highway is getting boxed in, for example, and Ironwood is sort of built out. Do you have an idea of what else can be done to improve the transportation there?
Well, there's several things that can be done. For example, the north-south corridor that's scheduled to be put on, that corridor is an important corridor. I think it's probably a little bit too far out. You got to travel 5 miles east of Santan Valley to get on it once it's built, and then once you get on it, if you're going to go to Phoenix, you got to travel 5 miles back. So maybe it's just a little bit farther out than we would have liked, given that Santan's the population center, not the middle of nowhere. So that's one thing that could have been done. But secondary to that is the way that it was designed for the distribution of monies. That's a $360, I believe, million project paid for by a half-cent sales tax. So they allocated money. The County Board of Supervisors approved a plan and worked on that, and they provided money. And so, but none of those monies come to Santan Valley. There's 100,000 people in Santan Valley that are paying the taxes, but none of those monies come back for local projects. Superior gets $6 million for their local roads and projects. Kearney gets $6 million for their local roads and projects. And Mammoth gets $6 million for their local roads and projects. Santan Valley gets zero for local projects, even though we comprise 25% of the population of Pinal County. So a fourth of the tax is being paid for, ostensibly, by Santan Valley, yet none of those dollars are coming back. There's 6 or 7 projects that go to Casa Grande. Several million dollars each of those projects, 6, 7, 8 million dollars. I think there's up to $150, $160 million that goes just to Casa Grande projects for local road improvements. Santan Valley gets zero. And so I think that one of the ways that we can build the roads and things would be to reallocate some of those monies. I'm not saying that Mammoth or Kearney or any of those places, or even Casa Grande, don't deserve some road projects. I'm saying that Santan Valley wasn't represented in the mix, and so we've just disenfranchised 100,000 people, other than the north-south corridor, which goes down there to the east.
Well, that would be something certainly to be able to work on. I know with Casa Grande in particular, they tend to say that they generate the sales tax because they have the car dealerships and the larger retail areas, things like that. Do you think you'll be able to get that redistribution?
Well, I don't think that it needs to be adversarial in nature. I think that if you work with people, in other words, the Board of Supervisors, and if you work with them, we can work out ways that bring some of that money to Santan while helping them develop their projects. All I'm saying is that Santan needs to be, I'm saying zero is pretty low. And so it certainly can't get any worse than that. So we're going to try to make it better, and I think Santan deserves better. We have some great people out there. We have some great neighbors. We have some great amenities. And one of the great amenities that I think that we can bring is we have a huge workforce. They're just sitting there ready to go to work locally if we can get the businesses to come there, as well as we don't have another layer of sales tax or property tax or any of those other taxes that cities require or towns require. So we actually have a lower cost of living, and if we can keep it that way but still provide a way for those businesses to come here, we can have that economic development that we're looking for. And I think that the County Board of Supervisors, as do I, are looking to help the whole entire county. And so I don't think that they'd begrudge at all having some businesses come to Santan Valley and having some roads and some facilities and some projects that would be paid for by the county or paid for by that half-cent sales tax. I think they wouldn't begrudge that at all, because in the end, any new sales tax and revenue that comes would come to the entire county. And given the population that we have a great spending potential. We could really tap into that if we plan properly to help the people in Santan Valley.
that we have in Arizona, whenever we talk about growth or improvements, is water issues. And in Santan Valley in particular, that conversation always goes to Johnson Utilities. So how do you see that moving forward? Are there solutions there? And do you see that limiting growth or maybe being resolved here in the near future?
I think that it's getting resolved. I think that with the installation of EPCOR as the interim manager of that we've seen some improvements. But I also recognize that even EPCOR is not the panacea that many people might think, because I actually live in Johnson Ranch. My water bill and my sewer bill are from Johnson Ranch. And my water and my sewer have been adequate and just fine, no problems to speak of. But as I say, it's gotten better. But since EPCOR's been in, they have sent me a notice, if you will, that says that they are looking to increase the cost of my services that they're providing to me. The water service, they want to raise 15%, and the sewer services, they want to tack on an additional 28%. So even EPCOR is going to the well, if you will, but we're a little on the low side on the well. We don't need those new expenses. So, but I think it's getting better. I think that there's opportunities. I think once upon a time there was an effort maybe to tie in with Queen Creek or not. And I think that we have a history in Arizona of helping each other out and working together on projects. When I was a police officer, we have mutual aid agreements between the surrounding cities. Mesa had one with Queen Creek and with AJ and with Tempe and I think even Phoenix in some cases. So we were able to help each other. The fire department did the same thing. They would respond together on fires with Gilbert or along borders or edges. And I think that those kinds of principles of helping each other out and relieving stress would be a good idea if we could tie those in. I realize that it's a private entity, Johnson Utilities, and so that's something that would have to be worked out with that. But even insurance companies have reinsurance. So I think it's important that we have backup systems and those kind of things, and I think we're moving in that direction.
We appreciate your time that you spent with us here so far. Is there anything that you wanted to add that we haven't covered?
No, I think it's important also that in addition to the experience that I bring to the table from the legislature or from a congressman's perspective or from even the police department and how law enforcement works, because the budget at the county level is for the sheriff's department, and having an understanding of what they really need and how they need to allocate their services, I think is important. But in addition to that, I think that when you elect somebody to represent you, you need to elect somebody that has the character that you're looking for. And so I think it's important that people understand my core values. I'm pro-life. I'm pro-Second Amendment. I'm pro-Constitution. That's how I was raised. I'm free market based. In other words, I don't like too much government intervention into how I run my business. I stand up for what's right. I'm pro-police. I will not defund the police department. That's a crazy idea. In fact, as a former police officer, I will defend the police. I will defend and help Sheriff Mark Lamb, who is a great sheriff, and he's doing a good job. And so I think that I would work well with him. And I think my experience at the legislature and my contacts at the legislature and with the congressional level will help Santan bring about this blossoming that I'm talking about, and I think it can happen, and that's what I'm hoping to do. So if anyone has any more questions or information that they'd like to get about me or my campaign, they can go to my campaign website. That website is votechuckgray.com, and I'm happy to entertain any questions that anyone has. So I'm happy to be running for this office, and I'm excited. I'm really excited to help the people of Santan progress and get what they deserve.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for joining us.